I'm Eric Wolf, and my experience in business peer groups has changed my life, especially my membership in Vistage, one of the world's largest CEO advisory groups. I'm an entrepreneur, a business owner, and a Vistage speaker on the power of marketing. This podcast is dedicated to the people who make those experiences possible, the peer group chairs. Every episode, I interview a Vistage chair who has dedicated their time to helping entrepreneurs like me succeed. Welcome to Chair Waves. My guest today is Nancy Capistran, and Nancy is Vistage Chair joining us from the greater Boston area. Have you been in, are you originally from Boston, or where are you from?
Yes, I was born and raised in Massachusetts. I'm about 22 miles outside of Boston.
Okay. So Red Sox fan?
Patriots fan, yeah. Kind of all New England sports.
All right. We can forgive you those things. Otherwise, your resume looks terrific. So Nancy has been, she's written books. She's been featured in the Wall Street Journal. She has got a couple of Vistage groups, a chief executive group, a trusted advisor group, and welcome, Nancy.
Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it, Eric.
So I would love to hear, so with Vistage chairs, what obviously this is not the kind of thing where, you know, you've got everybody lined up in elementary school and they say, oh, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it's like, oh, I'm going to be a fireman. I'm going to be a teacher. I'm going to be a Vistage chair. So this is often a second or third career for folks. So I would love to hear where you started and how you got here.
It's interesting. There was actually a defining moment that I only more recently realized how it kind of got me here. And that journey consisted of, I was going to school nights and weekends to college while I was working full time. And I remember thinking when I was kind of entry level, geez, there's a lot of inefficiencies here. If the executive team only knew. And these are the people that actually are the ones that are making a meaningful difference. Like, they're the ones, boots on the ground, that understand what's going on. If they only asked, like, what efficiencies could be enhanced to be able to make things better. And I remember saying, like, there's just so many things that could be improved here. And then I said to myself, if I ever have the chance, I want to be able to make a meaningful difference and let the executives know that these are the people that they need to be talking to, because it makes such a difference. And so I think it just kind of always steered me in the direction in my journey to work with CEOs and business owners and just to help them to see, cover their blind spots and help them to see things that they maybe not would otherwise not be thinking about.
You've got, so what was your, and by the way, I'm going to take a slight detour here because you sent me a very extensive bio, and thank you. I love getting as much information as I can. And so I was looking at the list of credentials that you have, and one of these things is kind of not like the others. You're a certified coach. You've got a master's in project management. You've got a Bachelor of Science, and then we've got graduate FBI Citizens Academy.
Yes.
Please tell me that story.
Sure. Well, it actually kind of evolved as I was, kind of maturing through my career and, from startups to multibillion-dollar companies. I kept getting this tap on the shoulder to be put into these small rooms to be like, all right, figure it out. We've got a major issue. We don't know how to do it. And I didn't really know that I even had that expertise, but apparently other people saw that in me. And so many times I would do that. And then it dawned on me, like, I have this unique skill. And it almost like the universe kept coming to me when there was crisis situations. And so my last job prior to having my own business was working at a multibillion-dollar company. And I did a lot of crisis risk compliance management. And there were some pretty significant things that have happened that I was kind of at the core of trying to not only create the plan, but also implement it. And when I started my own business, there was a lot of crisis situations that just organically came to me. And so somebody that I knew said, listen, I think you need to go to this training and be part of the FBI community as a Citizens Academy alum. And so he sponsored me for that. And I went through the program, and it really lined up nicely with a lot of the crisis work that I found myself doing.
That's very
Yeah,
cool.
and it's interesting because I was trained in Boston, and then I was invited to go to Quantico in Washington. So seeing the underbelly there and learning about a lot of the different things that they work on just helped to bring awareness for me. And I actually leveraged it in a situation that I was actually volunteering for. It was a very large event, and there was some awareness that I hadn't, if I didn't do the FBI Citizens Academy, I wouldn't have known. But there was a situation that was presenting itself that was very dangerous. And so thank goodness I had the person that was from the FBI that was in charge of that. And I reached out to him and explained the situation, and they quickly took care of it. And, so nothing occurred, which was wonderful. And they created a better process because of that. So I think it's a win-win because I'm just another set of eyes in the community. And as things present themselves, I'll see it from a different perspective than maybe somebody who doesn't have that background. And so I try to leverage it when I can.
Well, what was your first career like? What were you doing in the many years that you were a professional before you found Vistage?
I did a lot of work in purchasing, new product development and things like that. And I would say my background is very industry agnostic, just because of the path that I've taken. I've always been very curious and wanting to learn as many things about as many areas of business as possible. And that's always served me well. Even though I might not have worked in that group, I've interacted with them. And my project management background, I did a lot, which was, international. And so I interacted with many, many different departments. And so that kind of helped to just bring that diversity of depth and breadth of experience in different areas and industries.
That's very cool. What was the thing that made you decide that Vistage was going to be the thing for you in this stage of your career?
Great question. Thank you. Well, you know what was interesting? I have my own private executive coaching clients. And what I found was I loved helping people get to that next level of success. So I actually trademarked 3 words: expanding human excellence. And I love to do it for CEOs because of the ripple effect that it has throughout the organization. Getting back to what I had experienced, kind of cutting my teeth in business in like all the inefficiencies, and I wish they knew. So that was a big piece of it. And I also really I think it's important. Some people need the one-to-one coaching. Others need the combination of one-to-one coaching and the peer advisory full day sessions. And I think the balance of those two really complements each other nicely. And I felt like it was a missing piece of what I was looking for. And I have to tell you, the energy in the room and that melting pot of collective wisdom and the camaraderie is just phenomenal. Having that trusted space, the richness that comes out of that is phenomenal.
That's awesome. What was your experience like in the beginning, and how long have you been in chair?
I actually started, I wish I had a crystal ball because I might have done it a little differently, but I started in the same week that the world shut down in March of 2020.
Understood.
That was fantastic. And so I started Chair Academy at that point. And so it was a very heavy lift to kind of get my group up and running. And but it's just remarkable, the value in the just to see people, and when you see that light bulb go off and they realize, oh, and somebody covered their blind spot, that's really worthwhile.
What was, and we've had a small handful of chairs that had on this program that have had a similar experience to you in starting or trying to build during COVID. What was that like for you? Because so you start with Chair Academy, and the world is bottling up, and then I assume that you had to do a lot of that virtually, and now you're out of Chair Academy.
Yeah.
And you're trying to build a group virtually.
Mm-hmm.
What was that experience like for you? What did you go through during that time?
Well, I guess I would say it was character building. There was a lot of moving pieces, and we had to switch. We were supposed to be in person, and then they all of a sudden said, all right, we're going to do it, through Zoom. And so trying to figure all that out, which was interesting. But I think it just brought us together even tighter as a chair, the chairs that was going through that build and that learning opportunity together. because we were all going through it in a similar time, so we got it, we understood what the other one was going through. So the support, I think, and still to this day, I'm very close with some of the individuals that I went through Chair Academy with. And I found that very valuable. And just reaching out to people, I think it was hard, when there's challenges like that, that's when a Vistage group is even more important than, like when there's disruption in life, and whether that's in a business or as a society, right? When those things are happening, nobody has all the answers. Nobody's got a crystal ball. So that, that collective wisdom, when we're hearing different things or experiencing different things, that combination really does create magic.
Or even just personally. And it's really hard because I've definitely in my travels run across people who say, oh yeah, Vistage. I was thinking about Vistage, but it just wasn't the right time for me. There was too much going on. And I had this catastrophe that I was dealing with, and I had this work thing that I was dealing with. And people don't understand. It's counterintuitive that a lot of times it's like, but those are the times that you actually need the group. Yes. Those are the times when you do need to be reaching out for support. What sorts of things do you tell people who are going through that's sort of a thing, and they're telling you, well, I don't know if this is the right time for me?
Yeah. And oftentimes, it's understanding a little bit more about what they are dealing with, right? And understanding the specifics so that, I can even share, like, okay, well, we have another member that is dealing with the exact same thing, or this person went through that a year ago, and this is what they've chosen to do. And, I think that understanding where they've come from, and sometimes you get answers to your biggest challenges from the least likely place. Like, you might not even think, like, oh, if somebody who's a $100 million company, and there's a $5 million company in the room, and it's actually the $5 million company that has the answer for the $100 million company CEO. Right. And he's like, wow, I can't believe that that's where that came from. And it's, it's just, you just don't know where, because as you mentioned earlier, we all have a journey, and we all have done different things in our life, different experiences. And, when you're boots on the ground in various areas, that is really powerful. And I think, that's part of the reason why I wrote an internationally published book on leadership. And it was really, open your eyes and lead was a key part of it. But the second line of it, which is hardship and wisdom shape the best leaders in life. And I find that to be so true. And Vistage is a perfect example of that.
Absolutely. 100%. You mentioned earlier a couple of themes, and I noticed you identify yourself as being a 911 call for executives, and you mentioned that crisis management, for lack of a better word, is a big part of who you are and how you operate. I'd love to hear a little bit about that, and certainly without violating confidentiality, I would love to hear how you work through people's true crises with them, and what constitutes a crisis in your mind.
Yeah, excellent questions. Thank you so much for asking that. So a couple of things. Most people don't realize they're in crisis unless there's something that, like, in the snap of a second happens to them. And I think it's an interesting dynamic. So usually it's somebody who knows that person and recognizes that they're in crisis, that they'll refer them to me. And I specifically do something a little different. When you think about crisis management, often that's a PR firm. And my business partner she has her own PR firm. So that's kind of her space. And I use more of the executive coaching component, which most people don't think about. But what they don't realize is they're needing to make decisions at a rapid pace. And if they make the wrong decision, it could be detrimental to their company. And so I like to help them. Yeah, I like to help them with the business continuity, like trying to still run their business as usual while simultaneously handling the crisis. And then there's the sequencing of what has to happen first. You don't want to put the cart before the horse. So understanding, kind of and that's the project management head of mine that I have, thinking about what's going on in their world and what needs to happen first, second, and third. And so having that advisor to be able to support them in those things so that they can come out of this even stronger is really the ultimate goal, while remaining, having integrity and being true to their values and their goals.
And have you ever just told somebody straight up, like, hey, maybe you shouldn't have gone to the Coldplay concert?
Yes.
Ever come up or no? I don't
Yes, it
know.
has. Yes. More recently, we did have somebody. It was made national news, and it was in the paper quite a bit, and on social media and such. And it was interesting that it was a partnership, and one individual very much wanted our support and had hired us. The other
Right.
one was aware of it, but the other one decided we're not doing what they said. We're going to just say nothing. And unfortunately, that individual is now experiencing several lawsuits, and he just really, his brand has been permanently
Wow.
compromised, let's say. Yeah, so you can't want it more than them. You can just advise and offer the best support, but ultimately if they're not in it with you, then it doesn't necessarily go as smooth as it could.
How does the 911 for executives thing play out with your Vistage group?
Yeah, nice. I love that you said that, because I look at it as like a safety net, right? So I'm working with them on regular things, and it could be a crisis where one of my members is get like a hockey stick of growth, and this, we say growth pains for a reason. They are
Oh
growth
yeah.
pains, and they're intense, and they can be a crisis. And so it's understanding what decisions you need to be making and how you prioritize the work to be able to make sure that you are having the highest and best use of your time and your staff to be able to make meaningful traction during those heightened times. So the night,
Uncontrollable growth can very much be a it's
yes,
maybe one of those good problems to have, but it is it does feel very much like a crisis for the people who are
yes.
living it day to day.
Yes, and that's the thing, is sometimes people don't realize that. But when we think about crisis, it could be a data breach, a product recall, it could be a rogue employee, it could be somebody stealing from the company significant money. I mean, there's just a variety. It could be the death of an employee, somebody gets killed on the job. All of those things we've had to handle. But there's also the internal stuff that it's just all of a sudden comes to a point where the CEO or the executive team is kind of like deer in the headlights. They don't know what they need to do next, because there's just so much coming at them at warp speed that they need some help getting clarity around how best to handle those situations.
That's really really important, and it's a good. It sounds like you've got your group kind of grounded really well on a set of ideas and values that, hey, whether things are good, bad, or otherwise, we're all here, and we're all here for each other, and we're going to lift each other up in these times.
Yes, it's based on trust and respect, accountability, and collaboration. I think is important, because sometimes it's going to be one person, another time it's going to be somebody else. But knowing you've got that trusted space of board of advisors, if you will, is really priceless.
Absolutely. And so there's a thing that happens obviously with Vistage groups, is that we've got the chair, and the chair has the group, and we've got people out in the world that maybe are interested in joining groups. But of course, in your role, you've got it's not that you're a salesperson and your job is to sell seats in a Vistage group. You're trying to find people who are a good complement for the folks that are in the room, and that are going to fit your culture and all of that. How do you view the process of recruiting new members, and how do you go about that?
Yeah, so I think it's really about a mutual decision. Both of my groups are very interested in not having somebody that just has a pulse. They want to
Right.
make sure that it's somebody that's going to add value, and that's going to get value. And so I always, as I'm having conversations and kind of those informational interviews, I'm assessing whether they would be collaborative with the others in the group, if they would add some uniqueness to the equation, and that diversity of thought, diversity of experience is so important. And there's so many different ways to be able to find that. But I think getting that right culture fit is hugely important to the value that each member does get from those. And if you bring in somebody that's not the right fit, it does become toxic, and that kind of ruins the group. And so I work really hard to make sure that that doesn't happen. And my members are very appreciative of that. And we just, it's amazing. Like, I think we all at the end of the meeting are just like, wow, that was great. And I get excited because I see them gaining value, and they know what they need to do next when they leave that room.
Right.
And that's really powerful.
When you are talking to people that may be interested in joining, how do you define the culture of your group, and how would you talk about the kind of member that you're looking for?
Yeah, so we have some guiding principles, and it's really around trust, respect, accountability, being ready for the meetings, being open, being brave to be able to share your bumps and bruises, but also being humble to share your successes. And it's really based on those people that are growth minded. They're looking for that next level of success. They know they don't have all the answers. They're looking for somebody to help cover their blind spots. Oftentimes, it's that lonely at the top, or the imposter syndrome that's out there, and understanding those variables, I think for any individual that would be a prospect would be something that I'd be very interested in learning more. And understanding, like, what is it that they're really struggling with? What did I do really well, and how can that add value to the group? And what are they struggling with, and how can the group help them with that as well?
What do you tell somebody? Because and I've been a Vistage member for 6 years, and so I can definitely also vouch for the fact that imposter syndrome is still very much a thing, even in a room full of CEOs and a room full of people that are extraordinarily successful, that are
Yes.
managing sometimes very large companies with very large headcounts. How do you talk to folks who are struggling with that sense of belonging?
Yeah, I think it's part of that rapport that I try to build as I'm having conversations prior to them. And I want them to feel like as soon as they walk into the room from hello, they're going to feel comfortable. And oftentimes they're like, yeah, I'm not sure. And, so like I remember having somebody more recently that was a new member, and he had an issue that he wanted to process with the group. And he was like, yeah, I got to kind of have to feel comfortable before I can expose myself like that. I said, listen. And so I kind of walked him to, I said, listen, I'm not going to abandon you. I'm going to walk you through it. I'm going to make sure that you're going to feel comfortable. And at the end of the meeting, he came over to me and said, wow, I didn't think that was actually possible. I can't believe this was my first meeting, and I was able to be really candid and put that out there and have that trust already in the room, because there are no hidden agendas or ulterior motives, and there's only one seat per industry. And so that in itself, I think, allows for a dynamic in a room like that it is going to help people to be able to be more vulnerable and kind of speak to those things and get the value that they really need from it.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much, Nancy. I really enjoyed talking with you today. If folks have questions about your groups, about if you want to defend your choice of sports teams, if folks want to talk to you about Vistage, about your perspective on leadership, about being a member in your group, what's the best way for folks to get in touch with you?
Well, you can look on my LinkedIn. You can also look on my website, which is capistranleadership.com, or you can reach out to me at nancy.capistran@vistagechair.com.
Well, thanks so much. I really appreciate you being a great guest today.
Thank you, Eric. I really appreciate your time and the offer to be on your show. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Chairwaves. You can subscribe to our feed using Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your platform of choice. You can also visit chairwaves.com for more information. Chairwaves is hosted and produced by me, Eric Wolf, and to connect with me, you can visit my website at ewolf.live. That's EWOLF.live. And a disclaimer, while I love Vistage and CEO peer groups, this podcast is not owned by or affiliated with Vistage or any other peer organization. Thanks for listening.